Well, thank you very much. I don't know how many beers he had yesterday when I told him my story because he mixed it all up. I was born in Germany from Spanish parents.
Okay, but that was
Close enough. I moved to the U.S. in year 2000. I actually did my DVM in Spain, in the Canary Islands, so close to the beach. And then I moved to the States where I did a residency, a specialization course of 3 years in reproduction and herd health. And as part of that, I had to do a master's in epidemiology. So that's why Alon and I get along so well. And after that, I decided I wanted to teach at the university. So I did a PhD at Colorado State University for another 3 years. And then from there, I went to Oregon State University, where I've been teaching for the last 4.5 years. So I actually started working with the Afimilk system back in 1997 when I was working in Spain, managing what was at that point the largest dairy there. We were milking 1,500 cows. And I started working with the system. And to me, this was the most amazing thing I've ever come across. I was not an epidemiologist yet, but by training anyway. But something in my genes told me that I needed to work with tables and graphs and data. So it was nice to get to the US and actually being trained in how to manage data. And it actually had a name. The stuff that I was doing at the dairy in Spain had a name, and it was called epidemiology. So I'm going to show you some of the things that we're doing at Oregon State University with the system. And as you can see, the title of the presentation is Cooperation with Academic Institutions. For those of you who don't know where Oregon State is right above California, between California and Washington State. And it's a very small university. In fact, when I started going to some of the veterinary meetings in the US, and I wore my orange and black jacket, and it said OSU, they said, "Oh, you're at Ohio now." No, Ohio is more towards the east. Well, OSU, Oklahoma State University. No, the other OSU. And they kept all thinking, and these are all veterinarians from the States, and they're all thinking, is there another one? And so I told them Oregon State, and they said, Oregon has a vet school? And it's true that they just started with a vet school full-time when I got there 4.5 years ago. That's why they were hiring. So it's a very small university. It's not recognized as a dairy country at all. And thanks to the cooperation with Afimilk, we are now, I can truly say, right, Udi, the most technologically advanced dairy in all of North America? Yes, thank you. So we're very proud of that, and we're getting our foot into all this research, competing with the big guys, and they're learning a couple things from us. So it's really, really interesting to be able to show this data. So this is what the cooperation we have with Afimilk looks like. So Afimilk donated part of the equipment and the system, and is always giving us technical support. We got several of them, Pat and Gil and Alon and Udi, on speed dial through Skype. And what we do at OSU is trying to do as much research as we can in the little time that we have available and provide feedback to them in things that we're seeing, and then we move again forward from there. So the equipment that we have right now is the milk meters with the conductivity. We got the pedometer plus, we have the Afilab, and we have the scale. So you're gonna see some of the information that we get out of all these components of the system. So from now on, it's all graphs and tables. Now this is the fun part. Okay, so one of the first things that we started doing with the pedometers was behavior observations. And up until we started with the pedometer plus, this was the only information that was available on behavior in milking cows. This is from the Miller Institute, and this graph, according to them, shows that the more cows rest, the more milk they produce. Now notice that this graph has an R of 0.55, so that's basically flipping a coin, okay, 50%, flipping a coin. And yet, this is not published anywhere, it's on their website, sorry, the Miner Institute. And so they're saying for each extra hour of resting time, they get 3.5 pounds more of milk every day. Now, how many of you know how to get a cow to lay down more if she doesn't want to? Yeah. Break your legs. Okay, so interesting. Everybody was working with this because this was the only data available. I'm going to show you what what our cows are telling us because they're talking. We're not doing anything. This is on the x-axis, you see days in milk. So this is a regular lactation curve, but this is resting time. And you can see the dark line is the Holstein cows. We have 50 Holsteins, well, about 60 Holsteins and 60 Jerseys now. One of the terrible, terrible, terrible side effects of having this system, you go from 96 milking cows to 123 in 1 year without buying even one single cow. Very, very bad side effect. So this is something that all the farmers in Oregon are really keeping up, and they keep asking us, so how are you doing? How are things going now? How many are you milking? So we have half Holsteins, half Jerseys. And you can see here, the dark is the Holsteins, this orange color is the Jerseys. We didn't know that. It just so happens that Jerseys rest less time than Holsteins. And when you talk to some farmers, they say, yeah, I knew that. I said, well, I didn't. And then I just asked them and say, so how much longer? And then they don't know that because I don't show them the data before I ask them that. So anybody knows how much longer a Holstein lays than a Jersey? 100 minutes. Somebody can read actually the table, the graph. 100 minutes. And it's consistent all throughout the lactation. All throughout the lactation. There's a 100-minute difference between Holsteins and Jerseys. I mean, that's mind-boggling. There's got to be something in that system that tells the animal you're going to lay this many hours or this many minutes. So remember that other graph that was saying 17 hours? How many minutes is that? Hey, Ran, I was told by several people to keep you awake, so this is the only way, okay? You got to do math. Come on. About 1,000. Do you see where 1,000 is? There's no way the cows get to 1,000 minutes unless they're sick. So I don't know exactly how that other study was done. We don't get any cow up to 1,000 minutes a day. The cool thing is that this graph is done by the cows doing consistently between 10 and 12 resting bouts, both breeds. There's no difference in resting bouts in either one of the breeds. And yes, there's 100 minutes difference between the breeds. So this to us is just amazing. We didn't know these things. Now it's common knowledge, at least between Ben and I and the people that we talk to around here. So you can see that this correlates with the milk production. This is milk production of the Holsteins, and this is milk production of the Jerseys. Again, very parallel curves, just the natural difference in production. So you get to see that the lowest resting time is actually when they are in peak production. So this is actually the opposite of what that other study was showing. And what we have here is the average of over 60 cows, because this is over a couple of years. Okay, so this has a very small standard deviation at this point. It's very reliable. Okay, so we're going to see some graphs here of the last 10 days, and I'm going to be writing here some notes at the bottom that you can see. So this was back in the summer of 2008. No, 2001. How can that be 2001? I wasn't there. There's a glitch. 801. Oh, August 1st. August 1st. August 1st. That's I know. Because we... Uh-huh. Uh-huh. With the Israeli system, exactly. Okay, so notice that on day -4, -3, we had really high temperatures. It was actually 90 degrees Fahrenheit. What is that, about 35 degrees at 11 p.m. at night. I mean, it was really, really hot. So you get to see what the cows did on resting time, which is this green over here. Okay? Notice right there how they went down. Milk went down a little bit, but really not that much. Most of it was the resting time. You get to see a little bit on the activity. Okay? Here is when you move forward a few days, you get to see milk comes up to normal, and resting time goes up to normal, even a little bit higher. Activity goes back to normal. So they go through this phase, 3-4 days, off it goes. Things, the effects disappear. Now, Oregon is very mild weather. I would like to see this down in California and Arizona, see what that looks like. Here is another interesting thing. This happened when, this is just pen 1, which is our jerseys, and there's about 40 cows in there. And just so happened, this is when we were starting to get some of the cows pregnant and so on. So it just so happened that 19 out of the 40 got prostaglandin the same day. So look what the whole pen did with activity and with resting time during that period. Not much effect in milk again, okay? How many times have you heard the cows in milk, cows in heat drops in milk? Well, we're not seeing that much of that. Here is just the high production of Holsteins. Now all we have is a feed change, nothing else. They change the feed, that's all. And notice what happens with activity and with resting time. 12 hours. 12 hours after changing the feed, those cows are telling you you did something. 12 hours. We milk twice a day. So the next milking, we get to see changes. To the point that when I check on these graphs once, twice, 3 times a week as I have time, I actually see something like that, and I call Ben, the director of the dairy, and say, what did you do 3 days ago? And usually he will tell me, I did this. Why? What changed? Now he knows that something changed. So we're trying to follow these things. But how many of you have heard that when you make a change to the cows, it takes 7 days to show an effect? That's what we learn in vet school. So we're challenging that openly. That's not happening. It's the next milking. Okay, so here's another thing that happened one day. These are all observational things. They milked 2.5 hours late on one day, so you get to see that increase in milk. They drop, obviously, in milk the next milking, and then they go back to normal. But you get the same effect with the activity. Obviously, those cows are not very happy with the full udders. And we get to see, look at that resting time during the next 2 or 3 days, okay? Those cows are noticing things when you change things. We know cows are animals of habit. They're creatures of habit. Okay, this one's really interesting. We have a research pen that has kaolin gates. The kaolin gates, for those of you who are not familiar with them, the cows get a collar that identifies that animal, and you can have individual feeders, and they're closed, so that when the cow comes in with the collar, if it correlates with that gate, it will allow her to get the head down and eat. If it's not allowed by the ID, that feeder will not open. So you can have 6 or 10 feeders in a row with different compositions of feed, different feed stuff, and only the cows with the collar that allows entry into that feeder will be allowed to eat. So they were ready to do a trial feeding different fatty acids, and they put them into this new pen. And so this is 8 cows. So this is the average of 8 cows. And this is the day that they changed them. It's very clear when they change them. Look at what happens with activity. Notice what happened with resting time. Okay? They're not happy in that pen. And we still cannot figure out why. The same type of bedding, same type of metal. It's just obviously a different location. That's the only difference. They do not like that pen. You can see those cows, you put them in that pen, and they perch on the stalls. So they stand just on the stall with the front feet inside the free stalls and the hind feet outside. They just stand there. They do not like those free stalls. We don't know why. But we would like to do some trials with bedding. It's very obvious you can test those things. It's right away. Next milking, they will give you the answer. Okay, so here's some information that we did on drinking behavior. What we had here were 14 breeding heifers, 8 Holsteins, and 6 Jerseys. And what we were trying to do, since these heifers do not go through the milking parlor, we were having issues trying to figure out what session to set up so that we got the information to breed them. Okay, so these antennas were set up on the waters, on the water troughs, and we're trying to figure out when to set up the session. So I just had Afi map out every time an animal visited the water. And so here's a picture of how it is set up. There's the water trough. They have to go through the headlocks, and there's the antenna, and the pedometers were on the front legs. So this is what the heifers told us. Now, how many of you know people that milk at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning? I see some hands. Okay, 5 o'clock in the morning. Well, guess what these heifers are telling you? They don't get up until 7. Okay? These are my kind of animals. So notice if we put this in light and day, okay, this is what it looks like. This is during the daylight hours. This is during the night. So they're going to the waters during the daylight hours. They're not going at night. Some of them are, but not in general, okay? So this makes it really complicated at this point still to figure out when to set up the breeding window, the sessions. Obviously, nature has a way of getting back at you, and it solved the problem for us by increasing from 96 cows to 120-something milking cows in 1 year, so we had to take the heifers away from this pen, and now we don't have pedometers in the heifers because we don't have enough space. So now we just breed with visual heat detection and chalk, and it's the worst reproduction we've ever had in heifers. The milking cows are twice better than the virgin heifers. In which farms have you ever seen that, where the heifers are just half of what the milking cows are? We don't have pedometers in the heifers. That's the difference. So we still need to figure that one out. Okay, so notice here we have visits to the waters over different days here, the different hours of the day, and this is temperature in those 3 very hot days that we had in the summer of 2009. So this was the hottest day. Notice that usually they drink most of the time in the middle of the day. Then they start drinking more in the afternoons. Afternoons, that's when it gets the hottest, right? But notice what happens after 3 days. Now they're drinking throughout the whole day. It's not in the afternoon anymore. And as soon as the temperature goes down, what do the heifers do? They go rest. They go lay down. They don't drink as much, okay? And next day, they go up. They're tired because they don't feel comfortable when they're laying down, and it's hot. So they are standing longer, and they just go to the waters and drink some more. So here's a different way of looking at this, and what I have here is each row is one animal, and that's just a collar ID that we have for these animals. And up here at the top, you get to see the hours of the day. So it starts at 7 a.m., so up until 8 here, this would be the day hours, and these are the night hours, okay? So what you get to see is if it's blank, that means that heifer never went to the water during that hour. If it's this light yellow, it means she went once. If it's this kind of gray at this point, it's supposed to be orange, light orange. Looks funny in here. That would be 2. And then this dark one is more than 3 visits during that hour. So notice July 28th, that was one of the first hot day. we have most of the animals went to drink several times late in the afternoon, okay? Now we go to the next day. Notice what happened. Now they're drinking throughout the whole day, and several of them are visiting several times that water. And then the next day, look at what happened. That's when they were resting, okay? So you get to see some animals just went once throughout the whole day. That's it, once. After 3 days of very hot weather, okay? I mean, if anybody were to tell me that, I wouldn't believe it. After 3 days of very hot weather, an animal goes to drink only once in the whole day? Well, that's what happens. That's what our animals told us. Now, these are heifers. These are not milking cows. So milking cows probably have some difference since they have to produce milk. But unfortunately, we don't have a way at the dairy right now to measure this. But these are things that we can look into with the system. So one of the things that we do at the dairy, where every single observation that we see, is compare Holsteins and Jerseys, just to see if there's any difference. So you get to see there's not really that much difference between the Holsteins and the Jerseys in the drinking patterns of the heifers. Okay, any questions on the drinking behavior? No? Is it related to feed consumption? We didn't have automatic feeder measurement at that point, so I can't really tell you. But you know when it gets hot, the animals don't eat as much. I don't recall us measuring feed consumption at that time. So a lot of what happens here is retrospective, so I might look into this data in December, and nobody remembers what they were eating in August. Yes?
Did you use the log report to see how many times they were going to the water and then transfer it to an Excel or something?
Excel, yes. So the question is basically how I did this, and I went into the log data. Actual log gives you every single time the animal is identified, and I exported that to Excel to make these graphs. Yeah, I use Excel a lot. Okay. Let's go into milk parameters as monitors of metabolic disease. This is what we're doing currently, and we actually have a couple grants from the Agriculture Research Foundation and the Oregon Beef Council. And so far, we have 53 animals enrolled in the study, 24 Holsteins and 29 Jerseys. It's been going on for 5 months. We had to stop in October for lack of funding. We just got some more, so we're going to start again. This is what we're doing. This is the main thing different from having the Afimilk system. We're taking 2 blood samples from each cow every day for 7 days after calving. And so the red top tube is to measure chemistry. So we're looking at electrolytes, sodium, potassium, calcium, and so on, and things like NIFAS and BHBAs, and all those chemical parameters in the blood. The purple top, what we do is what we call a CBC, complete blood count, and that tells us how many red cells, how many white cells, what type of white cells, all those types of things. So this is the general results that we have so far. Looking at metabolic disease, and we're looking at clinical metabolic disease, so the one that anybody on the farm can detect, okay? So we have, you can see we have very few animals with milk fever, even fewer with ketosis, 1 cow with an LDA. This is out of 53 cows. So, how do you do stats on 1 cow, 3, and 5? Not very easy. So that's why we need more cows into the study. That's why we need more money. But once you divide this by lactation, notice that all of them are 3+ lactation cows. So what we're doing with the new money is just enrolling 3+ lactation cows, forgetting about the first and second. So it's a little bit more targeted. If you compare Holsteins and Jerseys, look at what we have now. It just so happens no Jersey cows with ketosis, no Jersey cows with DAs. But we obviously have more Jersey cows with milk fever. They're prone to have more milk fever. But again, nothing in the first and second lactation cows. So This is clinical disease. What if we look into subclinical disease? That's why we're taking the blood samples. So to diagnose ketosis, we're looking at BHBAs, beta-hydroxybutyrate acid, and look that adequate BHBAs, all of the cows are normal. High BHBAs, a lot of them are normal. They don't show any metabolic disease, any clinical disease. And all of the ones that show clinical disease, including the cows with milk fever, which has nothing to do with ketosis, have high BHBAs. So now if you go in this direction, you can see that out of 47 normal cows, normal, not showing any clinical disease, 2/3 actually have subclinical disease, according to the standards that we have at the university. So we went ahead and divided this by lactation. Guess what we see now? Now there is some subclinical disease in the first, second lactation, isn't there? So notice this increase over time, which makes sense, right? As the cow is older, we will have a higher proportion of animal with subclinical disease. I'm not sure I trust this 60% of first lactation heifers with subclinical ketosis. Now here's where I have to make an incision as an epidemiologist. One of the things that you always have to take into account is what are you comparing to? So the standard that we are comparing to has been developed using mid-lactation Holstein cows. Now we all know mid-lactation cows do not have high BHBAs. What I'm doing here is measuring fresh cows. What I want to know is what is a normal, healthy, fresh cow BHBA. I don't need to compare this to a mid-lactation cow. That's pretty much like trying to compare a blood sample from a kid to a blood sample of a 25-year-old person. It's not the same. It shouldn't be the same. So there are no standards for fresh cows yet. There's some people working on this right now because they've come up with the same conclusions that we have. If you compare now Holsteins and Jerseys within this system, interesting. Look at that. Now the Jerseys are higher on subclinical disease. So again, remember which standard I told you we were using? Mid-lactation Holstein cows. So we don't have standards for Jerseys. There are no standards for Jerseys. So now I'm going back. I was talking to some of you yesterday, and we're going back to do the basic stuff. What I'm going to do, my next step is to actually develop standards for Jerseys, because otherwise I can't keep going with this research. I don't know what to do with it, with these numbers, because they're obviously wrong in comparison with the standard. The standard is wrong, so I can't use that data. So since I can't use the Jersey data, everything that you're going to see from now on is Holstein only. And to make the point, you'll have a Holstein cow down here. So here is a comparison over the first 7 days. Whoops, here we go. My pointer is not working. There we go. The first 7 days, and this is just milk production, and now we're looking at subclinical disease as determined by BHBA. So the adequate BHBA is in black, the high BHBA is in orange. Notice that the cows with high BHBA have higher production during the first 3 days after calving. And then they kind of get stagnant for a couple days. Notice the cows with adequate BHBA, they start lower in milk into about day 3, and then they go up higher. Okay, so there's a definite difference in there. And we have about 20-something cows in each group, so it's not just haphazard results. So here is fat content in milk. Again, the adequate cows are in black, the high BHBA in orange. Notice they start about the same spot. So you're not going to be able on day 1 and say, oh, this one is going to develop ketosis. No, you're not going to be able to say that. But notice on day 2, okay? And day 3, especially day 3. What happens with protein? Not much difference, is there? So if you were to have a little bit of difference, and you have a lot of difference here, how about if we use body fat divided by protein, which is the body fat protein ratio that you probably have heard about. And look at that. Now we have a difference every single day of the 7 days. Every single day. So if you look at this, the standards that we use in veterinary medicine to declare a cow with metabolic disease is a butterfat protein ratio higher than 1.8. Look where we are, 1.4. That's for subclinical disease. Now, we used to use 1.8 based on the literature out there. Right now, we're using 1.6. We're still not quite going down to 1.4. But right now, we have a diagnosis called high butterfat protein ratio. And as soon as the cow goes up there, we treat her. And I think it's making a difference, and I'm going to show you why. So this was with subclinical disease. This is with clinical disease. So notice the 1.8 is related to clinical disease, okay? But what we're trying to do is make sure that we catch all those that we are not seeing any clinical signs. If you're already seeing clinical signs, you don't need this system. What we're trying to do is fine-tune and get those other cows earlier so that they don't get into the LDAs, okay? So this is what happened in the year 2009. This is before we started using the system in this way. Notice the Holsteins, again, this black line. Notice what they do in butterfat after calving. They go up, while the Jerseys go down. This, to us, was mind-boggling when we saw this. And this is the whole herd. So you have about 60 Holsteins and 60 Jerseys in here. So we started making changes in how we treated the ketosis. Look at what happened in 2010. Okay, they go up for a couple days. They still go up. They're still Holsteins. They still go up, but we're treating them earlier. And look at what happened. Okay, they go down a lot faster. So this is a way we're treating individual cows based on the system. We're actually changing the parameters of the whole herd. This is the same graph, but just focusing on the first 45 days, which is where we're seeing this drop. And what I have here is one line for each of the 1, 2, 3+ lactations in Holsteins and in Jerseys. So the blues are Holsteins, and the browns or oranges are Jerseys. So here you can see, for example, look at this blue. Light blue, first lactation heifers, Holstein heifers. They're following the Jerseys. Look at the other two blues. 2nd and 3+ lactation Holsteins. They have a mind of their own. They just go in a completely different direction, okay? So this is what we're focusing on. So we know now a Holstein heifer calves, big deal. You know, we keep an eye on them still, but we focus on the 2nd and 3rd lactation cows based on the information that we're getting out of the system. Okay, this is the protein, again, by lactation. So notice that the Holsteins are lower, obviously, than the Jerseys. Notice that most of them follow the same type of pattern. One of the things I've noticed here that I want to eventually pursue, so Nigel, you do not do this. I'm going to do this. Where are you? Okay, you do not do this. I am going to do this, okay? I will say here, but notice that the first lactation Jerseys are a lot lower in protein, and so are the Holsteins, which makes sense. Remember that the protein in the first 7 days is basically immunoglobulins for the colostrum. So what I want to do, if you do this, Nigel, I want in it. Okay. What I want to do is measure the colostrum quality and compare it to the protein levels in the Afi system. Because I bet you we can determine which cows have good colostrum without having to separate the milk, wait until it goes to normal temperature, to ambient temperature, so that we can use the colostrometer, okay? Because you have to be very careful with that. It has to be room temperature. You cannot measure it with the colostrometer when it's warm. You have to wait until it goes down to normal temperature. And then you have to heat it up to give it to the calves. So if we can measure it in line, that would be perfect. I just don't have time to do all these things, Udi. Okay, so here are a couple other things that we're seeing on individual cows now. Notice this cow, again, I think here Most of you know the colors. So blue is milk. This cow calves, and she's not quite getting up there. And suddenly she starts going down in milk. Look at what the butterfat does. See the butterfat up there? And the first couple days, it kind of goes up and down, up and down. Well, that's where the cow is kind of teetering, tottering, like not quite sure what she's doing. Notice the crash. Then she goes really up high in butterfat. She crashes in milk. This is a cow with a DA, okay? And we can catch these cows in 12 hours, okay? When you catch them really early, they go back up really early, okay? They come back really, really fast. One of the most common discussions that I have with veterinarians in the States is they will argue with me that when a cow gets a DA, she will never, ever regain normal production again. And I used to argue with them and say, no, yes, they do. No, they don't. No, yes, they do. And now what I do is say, do you have the data to support that statement? And they usually look at me and say, whoa, well, yeah, I see that on DHI Plus or on DHIA and say, nah, that's one sampling once a month. Let me tell you what happens when you actually measure milk every milking. They go back up, and I can prove this to you. And so I show them, and usually, obviously, they shut up because I have data, and I can prove things. It's really nice to have data to back up your statements. Okay, here's another cow. This one only had ketosis. She didn't have a DA. But notice that she's kind of going up and down, then she goes really, really high on one milking. We went in right away, treated her. We did ping her to make sure that there were no DAs in there, but right away, she comes back up in milk. This is first lactation heifer, so she's going to stay there. She's not gonna go up higher, okay? So, this is really interesting, and I would suggest that you have your farmers check into this. This is comparing multiple lactations of the same cow. One of the things that you will see is genetics. Notice these are 2 lactations in this animal. Notice that this cow crashed both years around the same time. And I can show you this consistently with pretty much every cow that has an issue in the beginning of the lactation with ketosis and DAs. She will have that issue around the same time every lactation. Every lactation. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. So I think over time we have just selected a lot of things out of the animals along with the milk, and I think most of you agree with me in there. What we didn't know, we didn't have any data, is that we were actually selecting for certain diseases, including metabolic disease. It's really amazing the things that we're seeing with these cows. What we're doing right now, this is a report that I think it's standard on AFI, is a butterfat protein ratio for each cow in the first 30 days in milk. This is what we like to see, a trend downwards. What we look for in this graph really easily, that cow needs treatment and that cow also needs treatment. This one is still on day 4. I'm allowing her to be close to 1.8. I don't have a problem. But once you go out here, 1.8 is not acceptable. So we go and treat those animals for high butterfat protein ratio. That's the only thing you see. You go see that animal, no fever, normal, she's eating, she's resting, she's chewing her cud. You don't see anything. You treat her with either propylene glycol or we have a, I shouldn't even bring it up, but oh well, I will bring it up. Wine, yes sir. We treat them with wine, red wine, and it works. It works really well. It actually works a lot better than propylene glycol. I do need, again, time and money to prove this. I know it works, but you have to publish these things to actually make it a fact. So we work for a university. I actually got an email from the acquisition department, and they want me to explain the fact that we were buying a lot of wine for the dairy if we were having a party or something. And so we told them that we were treating the cows, and they said that's not acceptable. And so I actually had to give a scientific explanation on biochemistry. That was very interesting. Yes? As it is related to ketosis, I would say yes, but I would need to look into that with actual numbers. But I'm going to show you why I'm saying that. Okay, so this is the same report instead of in a graph in a table, and we're just looking at that line that column right there. So notice that even just if you're a numbers person, this is really interesting. So Ben, the director of the dairy, he likes tables. I like graphs. So we have all the information, all the reports are duplicated in graph and in report form in table, so we both can get our information. Okay, so here is, Pat, this goes to your question a little bit. These are days to first heat for the cows with metabolic disease. These are the Holsteins, and these are the Jerseys. So this number that you see here is the actual number of days in milk to the first heat as detected by pedometers. So notice, fine, only one cow with an LDA. Remember, there was only one, but look at where she was, 92 days in milk. Okay, look at the cows with ketosis. So it makes sense that if you treat them with whatever works, you should decrease the days to first heat, and hopefully that will increase or improve reproduction. Okay, notice milk fever. Okay, in the Jerseys. So there's a definite difference in reproduction, and this is one of the grants that we got, is to actually look into this. So this is one of the latest things that we're doing. It's still under development, and this is something that Gil brought up when he was in Oregon. He was so excited when he told me, hey, next time that a cow aborts, will you do me a favor and check into butterfat? And I say, oh, it goes up. He got all excited. You saw that too? I say, yeah. So we had a great time that dinner. We were on the same page. That was good.
You guys need to get a life.
Hey, not everybody looks like you, Bjarne. So, okay, so here is a cow that you can see there's a little bit of noise here. She's at 200-something days in milk already. Here's a couple breedings. These are the green boxes. I'm a collar-coded person. I code everything with collars. So I can look at the graph and I can tell you if that cow is pregnant, open, if she has aborted or not, just looking at the collars off the boxes. So I do that a lot. And when there's a storm or something and it crashes the system, all the boxes go gray. It drives me nuts. I have to go back in and put every single one back in there. Anyway, so right now you get to see there's a red box right there. That means she aborted. And you can see a blue box right behind it. So this is a cow that I went to do the regular herd check. And she was supposed to be 42 days pregnant. And 42 days, it's about this big when you go and palpate it. And when I went in there, what I found was about this big. So I called her 38, and Ben said, 42. There's got to be something wrong. You just had too much to drink this morning or something. No, it's 38. Get the ultrasound. So we put the ultrasound in there, and guess what we found? A 30-day-old embryo with no heartbeat. So we went to the graph and said, is there any way that we can actually diagnose that? Well, look at the butterfat. Right there. See that butterfat spike right there? Okay? Well, guess what? We're seeing that in a lot of abortions. They spike in butterfat, one milking, and then down. And what we're doing right now is, as we find cows in heat again, so this one, obviously, we gave her a prostaglandin, which is that purple color there, and then she came in heat. And there's the heat. And notice again, the butterfat goes up with the heat. So I was talking to Gil that one of the things that we need to do is check if this is related to estrogen. And I don't know yet, but this would be something interesting to look into. So there's one cow, and just to show you that this is not a fluke, here's another one. And I could show you several more, but obviously we don't have time for this whole thing. But here is this heat that she got bred to, and then there's no activity. And we went in to check her, and she's open. And you go and check right before and look at what happened. Another one. And we're actually finding this also in the cows that are aborted at 3, 4, 5 months. okay? This is a teaching herd, so we have a lot of people that come in and learn how to palpate. So there's a lot of people palpating cows there. We don't know if it's related to that or not, but we are seeing this butterfat spike in cows that are born. So that's just a little glimpse into some of the things that we're doing. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I really thank you for listening. Well, they were asking us, I was presenting, but... Oh, you Aussies are so cheap. 2 bottles. 2 bottles. 2 liters. 2 liters the first time I treat them, 1 liter afterwards, and 1 liter after that. So I give them up to a gallon. Red wine. No? And you know, one of the things that Ben says is that with propylene glycol, you really have to fight with them to give it to them. The wine, they will drink it half of the time. Why is it that the wine is always the stuff that brings you guys up? I'm no comments. In jerseys, yes. So the question is, we're doing, yeah. Can you repeat the question? I'm just doing that. Good. The question was, if we're doing any follow-up on butterfat protein ratios in jerseys. Right now, we are using the same ratio as for the Holsteins. We know it's wrong, but it's as good as we can do. So as soon as I can develop the standards of normal blood parameters for jerseys, we will change that. But right now, I don't have any way to determine what's normal.